Sorry, louder please. Good afternoon, Leeds! What do we want? Sorry, what do we want? When do we want it? No, when do we want it? When? This looks absolutely incredible. From where I'm standing, I have to say, congratulations, Leeds. This is amazing. I'm just going to give an introduction before I introduce some of the speakers. But I just want to start by saying, I wholeheartedly believe 100% that we will stop Brexit. No one said it was going to be easy, but we can stop it, and we will. Today is an example of that. Just to introduce myself, I'm Peter French, I'm with Stop Brexit Limited. Richard Wilson of Leeds for Europe invited us to actually help him organise this march. And when he approached me at the beginning of January with this, I thought the timing was perfect. It's almost a year to the day since we triggered Article 50. Exactly. It's almost a year to the day to our supposed exit from the EU. I say supposed because that's what they think. We think otherwise. 29th of March 2019 marks our continued stay within the EU. The float looks a bit damaged. Unfortunately, it got a bit of damage travelling here today, but somehow it's very fitting. Not so strong and stable after all. Falling apart just like the negotiations. Well look, it's my pleasure to introduce the chair.
I never thought we could do this. Thank you so much for coming. I want to first of all just pay tribute to Peter French for helping us with this. You would not believe the obstacles he has had to overcome to make it possible for you to stand here today. So please thank you to Peter French. I'm also going to thank the team behind Peter, the Stop Brexit March team. They've travelled up to help us out with this and they've done a lot of logistics. Tremendous team, and I thank them very much. And I also want to thank the fantastic Leeds for Europe team. They are unbelievable people. They've worked... They have worked their socks off for the past 15 months to build for this moment, so thank you for every one of them. And I also want to just thank, finally, the other similar groups to Leeds for Europe across the north of England and beyond who have supported us today. Thank you for coming, everybody. I'd just like to tell you a little bit about the history of Leeds for Europe. We were formed on one day in January last year. There were about 9 of us in a cafe in Leeds. We shared one common view, which was that we were absolutely determined that we're going to stop Brexit. We didn't think it was possible with 9 people. Now, what we see here today, it starts to become plausible that we can do that. We're going to keep going, we're going to keep fighting until we get Britain back where it belongs, in the heart of the European Union. It's often said that the north of England is to blame for Brexit. We reject that accusation. We are here to show our friends in the south of England, in Scotland, Wales, Ireland and around the world that the north of England rejects Brexit. Don't forget, Leeds voted to remain in the European Union. York voted to remain. Newcastle, Manchester, Liverpool, we all voted to stay in the European Union.
Turn it up a bit! Turn it up! Make it more loud!
Why do we want to stay in the European Union? Because we Northerners, we have the same hopes and concerns as people in the rest of the country. We value our freedom of movement. We value the right to live, study, settle in 27 other countries around the world. We're no different. We value our EU citizenship. We value the prosperity that our membership of the European Union has brought to us. And most of all, we value the peace that the European Union has secured for a continent which for centuries has been devastated by nationalism and war. What is true about the North is that there are places where people feel they've been left behind, and they have. The North has been ignored. Some of our communities have been allowed to fall into decline. We've got third world public transport, and our National Health Service is being squeezed. So it's understandable that people out there want change and are dissatisfied. We want change. The problem is that the change that Brexit represents will solve none of these problems. Brexit is a massive distraction from tackling the real issues that we face in this country. Increasingly, our task as a movement is going to be to present to the people a positive vision of our country within the European Union. Being in the EU has brought us peace, prosperity, security and freedom. Why would we want to give that up? I just want to finish by saying, if you agree with any of what I've said, please, and if you're not involved in the campaign at the moment, join a local group, join our group, join a group where you live. We need to keep doing this. We need to build from here. Brexit is not a done deal. If we work together, if we keep doing things like that, we can and we will stop Brexit. Enjoy the rest of your day. Thank
you. Richard Wilson. Now, on Monday evening, I was invited to a very special event in London for EU citizens in this country. I met more people on Monday evening who I saw absolutely terrified of the future that lies ahead for them. The event was called, Should I Stay or Should I Go? And part of my speaking was to introduce a group of 4 young people who are taking the Remain movement by storm and are grabbing headlines across the country. It is my absolute pleasure to introduce Ofok.
Hello, Leeds! Alright, so, Brexit. It's a fun topic, let's discuss it. Alright, so, everyone can agree that leaving the European Union is a step back from the rest of Europe. No one can argue that.
Louder! Louder!
Everyone can, oh wow, okay, yeah, that's better, that's better. Everyone can agree that leaving the EU is a step back from the rest of Europe, and that makes you think that it's more nationalist. It's definitely more nationalist, and this idea is that somehow pro-Europeans are less patriotic. I'm sorry. There is nothing patriotic about finding out that the country is doing something that's going to hurt it and just letting it happen. People forget that we want a strong UK too. We want a rich UK too. We want a UK that will work for everybody. And Brexit is getting in the way of us fixing those problems. Now there's this argument that it's the will of the people and that we have to let it happen. Again, is the will of the people fixed in 2016? No. Are we all bound by what was decided two years ago under circumstances that everyone can agree were crap? Not to mention, young people do not want Brexit. We voted strongly against it. So the will of the people, that argument, has an expiration date. And even right now, what we're seeing, it's not the will of the people. Even for Brexiters, this isn't what they wanted. Brexit promised that it would save the NHS, while all of its doctors are leaving. Brexit promised that it would stop globalization. What did you get? Global Britain, designed for multinationals. Brexit promised that it would rebalance the country. What did you get? The areas of the countries that have been left behind are going to be even more left behind as a result of Brexit. Brexit promised that it would take back control. Well, what we've just agreed with the EU means that we're going to be following EU laws without a say in it. We've just given up our control. Brexit promised that it would make us safer. Well, guess what's happening in Northern Ireland? Does that seem like the way to safety? Does that seem like a way to increase security? Threatening the Good Friday Agreement that has maintained peace, relative peace, in Northern Ireland for the past 20 years? No. Brexit promised to control immigration. What? By giving more power to a government that has failed to use EU rules to control immigration. Yay. Brexit promised to give power to the people, but right now, we've never felt more powerless. Both Brexiters and Remainers, nobody likes the direction this country is going because Brexiters think the deal is rubbish, Remainers want this whole thing to stop, so who's happy? How is this the will of the people if nobody's happy? This is our future, it needs to be our choice. Now, I'm going to finish with this. I have a dream. That one day, my passport will be judged not by the color of its outer skin, but by the ports it lets me pass.
That was amazing, Toby. All of us love you so much. Absolutely. Femi for PM one day. I actually don't like speaking in front of big crowds. I kind of hate it. But I also hate being lied to. I also hate seeing the things that I care about, like the NHS, like access to opportunities, the things that are good in this country, I hate seeing them ripped apart. I hate the rise of xenophobia, and I hate the rise of racism. I hate that this country is being ripped apart, and it feels like we can't do anything about that. But the truth is, as you've shown today, which is amazing, we can come together. We can come together to heal the divides in this country that have been forming for decades. And it's not a case of whether we stay in the EU or we leave. It's not a case of who we have in Parliament, who represents us. It's a case of humanity. It's a case of showing how much we care, and it's a case of not letting those few who would separate us based on how much we earn, based on the color of our skin, based on our religion, based on whatever. We can't let that happen. So Brexit doesn't mean Brexit. What it means, it gives us an opportunity to show those few that the many are stronger, and that we can come together, and that we will fight this. And we will turn all of this around, and we'll have a better UK, we'll have a better Europe, we'll have a better world.
So, If you're a young person and you hate Brexit, then we need you. We need you to go to our website, we need you to sign up, we need you to go to our social media, our Facebook, our Twitter, our Instagram. We need you to follow us and to get involved. And we'd love to hear any ideas that you have. Sorry. 2 months ago, we launched our campaign with an open letter in The Guardian, imploring Jeremy Corbyn to change his stance on Brexit. But we need your help. Most importantly, we need you to remember that Brexit is not a done deal. We need you to carry on talking to your friends about Brexit, talking to your family about Brexit. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Will. I hope you can hear me at the back. There are quite a lot of people here. I think that it shows, if anything, that the pro-European movement in this country has only gotten stronger over the last 2 years, not weaker. And actually, I just vividly remember a bit after a referendum seeing a really pathetic march in Westminster when I think it was Andrea Leadsom had a march for Parliament. She had around 50 leavers. I don't think they could do anything like this right now. And I haven't ever seen so many European flags, which makes me quite scared to say what I'm about to say, which is that I voted Leave.
We forgive you! Don't do it again!
I voted Leave because I wanted more trade with the rest of the world, not less. And I believe other Leavers voted for that too. I wanted more money for our public services, not less, and I believe other Leavers voted for that too. I didn't vote Leave to screw Europeans living here or Brits abroad, or to cause chaos in Northern Ireland. I didn't have a clue about any of those things, to be frank. Nobody did, as Femi says. But the truth is that 17.4 million people in our country a year and a half ago voted Leave. I don't believe that there are 17.4 million racists in our country, I just don't. And that's why I'm supremely confident. But because of what's happened over the last 2 years, we can be very, very strong in our arguments and convince those people. But what you voted for is not what you're actually going to get. What you're going to get is less money for the NHS, less trade with the rest of the world. And I think that young people have a really, really strong role to play in this. You know, I hope that most of you saw that Jeremy Corbyn did something very stupid yesterday. But the truth is that this cause has so often been not led by the likes of you and the likes of us. It's been led by big business and centrists who I've got absolutely no problem with. But Jeremy Corbyn is not going to listen to big business or centrists. He's only going to listen to the grassroots, and particularly the core constituency which elevated him to Labour leader in 2015, protected him as Labour leader in 2016, and then gave him a surge in the 2017 election. And if young people mobilise around the country and tell him, Jeremy, we support a lot of your analysis of the society, but we don't support your policy on Europe, then we can change his mind. And the final role that young people have to play is that our cause has always lacked passion. I mean, you wouldn't think that today, but on TV or whatever, it's always lacked passion. But I think young people, as Femi articulated right at the beginning, can absolutely ensure that there is a really strong emotional argument on our side, and that is that young people want a great European Britain. We want a united kingdom and a united Europe, and we're not going to tolerate our country being torn apart by the likes of people who just want to deregulate it and destroy it like Callum destroyed. You know, just one more thing. Campaign managers, people who work in politics, spend their lives trying to get activists into areas which, who disagree with them or are swing voters. In every single household of a Leaver, there's probably odds on a child. That child, what we're going to be trying to do is mobilising that child to plead to their parent or grandparent who voted Leave but might not be sure anymore, but they don't want this. And if we do that, then I genuinely believe that we can save our country. And I believe that we have to save our country because the alternative is absolutely dire. Please get out there, please talk to people, please keep up the good fight. Thank you for coming.
Brexit isn't some trial run. It's not something that we can just try and if it doesn't work out, we'll be fine. Brexit is going to leave us weaker. either if we leave the EU and then end up cut off from our closest trading partners, or have to go back in and end up with a weaker position within the EU. This is going to affect us for the rest of our lives, for the rest of the country's future. This isn't the most important thing right now is stopping Brexit. That's what we should all be doing with one solitary voice. So stop Brexit.
I'm sure you agree with me. They're a welcome addition to the Remains team. Off. I actually believe part of the answer to us stopping this is with young people. It's their futures who are going to be more at stake. They're going to be denied the choices we've all had for over 40 years. 2.4 million young people between 18 and 24 have still not registered to vote. We have got to get the message out to young people. They have got to participate in their own lives. They have to take a part in creating their future. But it's up to us to help them, and it's up to us to try and turn this around. Now, I'd like to introduce Jonathan Bartley, co-leader of the Green Party.
Wow. You look beautiful.
Thank you. Thank you.
The Green Party is so proud to stand with our neighbours and with our friends in Europe. We are proud to stand up for Britain's place in Europe. And we're proud to say what needs to be said. We should remain in Europe. As we've already heard, Brexiteers like to talk about taking back control. So you know what? Let's do it. Let's take back control. Let's give our country back control of the decisions that matter. Let's give people the power to share our future together. Let's have a people's poll on the final deal. The first meaningful vote on the future of this country, and a vote that includes the 16 and the 17-year-olds whose future is being sacrificed through those who won't live to see the consequences. But friends, we do stand at a crossroads. And we have to ask ourselves one simple question: what kind of country do we want to be? Do we want to shut people out? No. Do we want to bring people together? Yes. Do we want a new era of conflict and hate? No. Do we want an era of peace and prosperity? Yes. Do we want to cut ourselves off? No. Or do we want to open ourselves up to the world? Yes. Friends, we know what kind of country we want, and together we have the power to create that country to be proud of. A country proud of its place in Europe. Because friends, the truth is that's not what we have now. The Britain this government is building doesn't look like the Britain that I'm proud of. Pushing more people into poverty, wrecking our welfare state and our NHS, willing to crash us out of Europe. Friends, will we let these people define our future? No! 1 year after Article 50 is triggered, what are the Brexiteers up to now? They're nothing. They're fudging their lines. They're shuffling in circles. They're flinging fish off a boat. They are clueless, rudderless, visionless, leaderless, directionless, and hopeless. And you know what? Standing here today, I'm more certain than ever that we won't let them define the future of this country. We won't let them. Our future is in Europe. We're connected financially by the single market. We're connected physically by the Channel Tunnel, but most importantly of all, we're connected by the friends, by the lovers, by the sisters, the brothers, the aunts, the uncles, the workers and colleagues, our builders, our doctors, our nurses, our shopkeepers, our plumbers, our parents, our grandparents and our great-grandparents. We are all connected together by that precious gift of freedom of movement that I will defend to the end. Our place in Europe is cherished by millions. And I can't believe that this government is prepared to throw it all away. Friends, are we going to let them throw it away? No! Are we going to let them turn Britain into a bargain basement? No! Are we going to let them tear up our environmental regulations? No! Our workers' rights? No! Our freedom of movement? No! No, friends, we are not going to let them sacrifice our future on the altar of Brexit. We are going to take back control for ourselves. We're going to shape the Britain we can be proud of, a Britain which welcomes migrants and refugees proudly, that builds bridges and not walls, that looks to the future and not a mythical rose-tinted past, and a Britain that stands with our friends and our neighbours across Europe. Let's stop Brexit. Thank you.
Thank you, Jonathan Bartley, for the Green co-chair of the Green Party. I'd like to introduce now someone to represent the unions. Mike Buckley.
Hello everybody. What an amazing crowd. Thanks for coming today. So I'm here to represent the trade unions. I don't know how much you know about the trade unions, because you hear so much rubbish about trade unions in the media. But trade unions really exist to ensure that working people in our country have access to safe, meaningful, secure employment. And that's what it's great, isn't it? It's a really good thing. And it's one of the things that is most at stake under Brexit. The Tories' Brexit deal threatens much of what I work for and what everybody works for in the trade union movement. Based on the government's own assessments, businesses are going to leave the UK after Brexit, taking jobs with them.
They're leaving now.
Wages are going to be hit. Businesses are going to close and jobs are going to be lost. We've got to be honest with ourselves. There's no Brexit deal that's going to give us better workers' rights or more protections. There's no Brexit deal that brings us more jobs, creates more businesses, gives more opportunities to our young people. Arguments about what Brexit deal... Hello, mate, I'm speaking. Arguments about what Brexit deal we have are all arguments about how much we lose and who loses most. We also have to recognise that the good the EU has done for working people. When UK governments have attacked workers' rights, it's great. I mean, it really is a good thing. When UK governments have attacked workers' rights in the past, the EU has always protected those standards, every single time. Every move the EU has made on workers' rights has been to make them stronger, never weaker. So the idea that the EU is bad for workers' rights is madness. And the idea that workers' lives will get better outside the EU is also madness. We'll be leaving a union that promotes workers' rights, while the Tories will have free rein to slash those rights in their pursuit of a low-tax, low-regulation economy. That's a boo moment. Thanks. And we know what that looks like. A US-style system, with no guaranteed holiday, unrestricted hours, easy hire and fire, no maternity rights. Workers need more protections in our country, not less. So the question today for all of us, it's great to come on a march. We love marching. We get to hang out with people that think like us, that have got blue flags, that think the same way that we do. But we've got to do more than this, because just this isn't going to do everything that we need to do in the next year. So my question today is, can we end Brexit? I think we can end Brexit. To most people, though, Brexit sounds far off. It sounds really distant. It's about trade deals and customs unions and things that aren't relevant to real people's lives. We've got to get people to realise that Brexit is about jobs. It's about workers' rights. It's about the NHS. It's about our kids' futures. And for us, what that means is stepping out and talking to our family members that voted leave. It means talking to our colleagues at work. It means joining a campaign. It means joining a political party and using that platform to speak out. It means joining a trade union and using that platform to speak out. It means writing to our local papers. It means getting on our local radio stations. It means calling our MP, calling our councillors and saying, please speak out, because my future's at stake and my kids' futures are at stake. So my ask for you today is, if you've come on this march, brilliant, well done, that's absolutely the right thing to do. But what are you going to do next? Because it's what we all do after today that is going to make a difference in the next year. Thank you.
The question of what we do next is going to be addressed by a colleague from Stop Brexit Limited, Patrick Lolling.
Hello everybody, hello Leeds, I love it here. Now, I may be wearing a Leeds for Europe t-shirt, but I've come all the way here from Kent, and I know that other people here have come a very long way, including other people from Kent I know, but there are many, many groups who are represented here, and I'd just like to hear it, who's here from Manchester for Europe? Who's here from York for Europe? Who's here from Newcastle? There's a couple from Newcastle. Now, there are a lot of people who are not saying anything so far, because I know a lot of you are not in a group. Now, people here are talking about how we're going to stop Brexit. Well, there are some of us who are organising groups, and we go on the streets at least once a month and talk to ordinary people. The way to win this fight is not over the internet. It is not by having a row with a lever on the internet. It's about talking to normal people, talking to your family members, talking to your friends, your colleagues. But it is also about getting organised, and that's what I want to talk to you about now. What we have developed is an app on our website, stopbrexitmarch.com, which tells you where your nearest group is. If you go to the front page, you scroll right to the bottom, there's a little form. All you have to do is put in the first 4 digits of your postcode, and that will tell you the local groups in your area. Now, some of them are very small. There's some small groups called the 48%. There's one in every single constituency in the country. We want you to join these groups, and we want you to join the bigger groups, because there are bigger groups like the European Movement, like Britain for Europe, who are really, really active, and they're getting more and more active all the time. If you're not part of one of these groups and you're not helping to stop Brexit, please do that. Peter, let's hear you back on stage.
I'm going to bring on Serena Stallard, who's got the big flag.
The big flag is right at the front there, so she'll not be bringing the big flag with her.
Hello, Leeds! Thank you for having us. I'm Chris from EU in Brum, and this is Serena, also from EU in Brum. But we're also here with the EU flag relay, and we are chuffed to bits today to present to you the giant EU flag that has been leading this march. And Serena will now tell you more about the EU flag relay.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you. Hi, everyone. For something different. Corruption made us come out in the street in January 2017. It was a moment we saw the large EU flag relay come together as a safe place. Our protest carried out in Romania and around the world in parallel with anti-Brexit protest until we finally met in Birmingham as part of one of the EU in Brum rallies, and then with Peter French in Manchester at the Great March, and then at the regional rallies in Bristol with Bristol for Europe. We are caught between a rock and a hard place. The country that adopted us is happy to have our skills, but pays us in insecurity, instability, and xenophobia. On the other hand, our country of origin shows increased Euroscepticism and is ever more close to Russia. I am Romanian, as you can see, but this is valid for Polish, Hungarian, Bulgarian, and any other populations from Central and Eastern Europe. As a British resident, I feel we have a right to say what we think. And as an adult living in a democratic country, I see no issue in stating I believe Brexit is a mistake. It is not a done deal. Therefore, under the flag, or own the flag, as we sit today, strong, awake, together we stand. Thank you.
Thank you very much. What do we want? Stop Brexit! When do we want it? Now! When? Now! I'd like to introduce somebody who I think a lot of you might know, very local to here, Richard Corbett, who is the Vice Chair of European Movement.
Hello, everybody. Brexit is no longer the same issue that it was 2 years ago at the time of the referendum. It's no longer about the idea of Brexit. It's about the emerging Brexit reality, which is somewhat different to what was promised at the time of the referendum. It's the actual Brexit, the deal that's going to come back in a few months' time, that is the issue at stake now. A very different proposition to the general debate we had 2 years ago. And the question people will ask, the question that people who voted Leave will ask, and I see they are also represented here, is does this match what was promised? No. Are we going to get what the Leave campaign promised? No.
No, we are.
Are we going to get what Brexiteer ministers are still promising? No. Are we going to get the same, exactly the same access as David Davis promised to the single market as we have now? No. Are we going to get, as Liam Fox promised, shiny new trade deals with countries across the world? No, of course not. We're going to lose the trade deals that we currently have via the EU and have to start from scratch, just negotiating as Britain. Are our farmers going to get the full access that they have now to the single European market and the income that they currently have? No. Are our universities going to still continue to participate in European research programs on a collaborative basis, as the government has promised? No, or at least damned unlikely. Are our police forces still going to avail of European Security Cooperation and Europol? No. And last but not least on my little list, because there's actually one heck of a long list you could make, what about this border-free border, this check-free border in Northern Ireland? How do you turn that border, as the government wants, into a customs border and not have any customs controls? The rest of Europe is waiting with bated breath to hear how that's going to happen. So whichever way you look at it, Brexit is not turning out to match what was promised. And that's why public opinion has not rallied as you would have expected behind the referendum results. On the contrary, it's beginning to inch the other way. You would normally expect after a referendum people to say, oh well, that's settled, let's get on with it. That has not happened. The number of people here today bears testimony to that. The opinion polls bear testimony to that. People are beginning to shift the other way. And that includes crucially, Leave voters. Not everybody who voted Leave supported Brexit at any cost. They thought it would be cost-free, that it would bring in lots of money, that would all go to the NHS. As it's becoming clearer that Brexit is a costly exercise, hurting our economy, destroying jobs, hurting our public finances, those voters are entitled to say, wait a minute, that's not what I was told. That's not what we were promised, and it's damn well not what I voted for. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Richard Corbett. You know, one of the amazing things about this campaign, there are groups all over the country, large and small, all now coming together to work together. We have 6 to 7 months at the very most to turn this around before the MPs supposedly vote on the 13th of November. But we can turn this around. I really believe that. We're going to have to start working hard from today. It's not just about marches, it's about going out and spreading the word. It's about standing up for ourselves, and it's actually about not being shy about it. I'm really pleased today to actually introduce the chair of Britain for Europe, Mr. Tom Bruffato.
Thank you, Peter. And thank you to Leeds for Europe for organising this fantastic event. Now, I am here today because I believe in democracy, like many of you, everyone here as well. I am here because I believe in this country, and most importantly, in its people. And I am here because I know that by working together, we can bring Britain back from the brink of Brexit. Now, I do not blame a single person for voting for Brexit, but what worries me deeply is the forces that are driving the narrative. And I think that the Cambridge Analytica scandal has blown the lid off the collusion, the conspiracy, and the deliberate attempt to subvert our democracy. Now, this makes it clear to me, and it drives home something that I have felt deeply since the very beginning. Brexit was never the will of the people. Brexit is the will of nationalist politicians, it's the will of populist politicians, and it's the will of the right-wing press barons. And I am painfully aware that their objective is to divide our nation and to drive a wedge between the peoples of Europe. This is unacceptable, and I will not stand up, and I will continue to oppose all those that seek to make our European brothers and sisters feel unwelcome in their own homes. But they don't scare me. They shouldn't scare any of us. Look around you. Look at the numbers that are here today. When I look at you, I see defiance. I see a nation that continues to fight to take back the reins of its own destiny. We are undoubtedly the change that this country needs. Remember, at this very moment, just as we stand here, there are our colleagues and friends from organisations such as European Movement in Scotland, Exeter, Ipswich and Pontypridd that are doing the exact same thing today. And now on top of this, recently all pro-EU membership organisations joined forces to create an electoral army with over 600,000 supporters. This means that our movement is now bigger than any political party in the United Kingdom. We are now an unstoppable force. And I know that government is now careening ahead with a Brexit at any cost, because with our mounting opposition, they know that they are running out of time. Because they know that they have committed to deliver the undeliverable. The Leavers promised us that with Brexit we would prosper. But now we know that our economy will suffer as a result. They promised the nation that we would see an increase in public spending, and now we know that the 350 million figure was a deliberate attempt to mislead the public. They told our nation that we would take back control, and now it is clear to everyone that we are giving it away. They also told us that we have voted for sovereignty, and now it is clear that with Brexit we become a rule taker rather than a rule maker. And they are so scared that our government doesn't even want to give Parliament a vote on the terms. They are even more scared of giving us, the people, a vote on the terms. Because they know that over the last 2 years, public opinion has failed to rally behind their Brexit. And instead, they have chosen to continue the Brexit mantra and peddle the lies and the division that caused the Brexit vote in the first place. I think this is completely unacceptable. However, if 2016 and 2017 will be remembered as years of hatred and division in the history of the United Kingdom, then let's make 2018 the year of a real resurgence of British values. Let's make 2018 the year of real change. Let us bring our nation together behind a people's vote on the terms of Brexit. So today, what I'm asking of you is that you seek out your local pro-European group and that you join them, because together we need to show the world that although it is true that the United Kingdom was among the first countries to fall to its knees at the hands of nationalists and populists, we need to demonstrate to the world that we can be the first to rise up to our feet again. Let's make 2018 the year that we stop Brexit.
Tom Barfato, Britain for Europe. You know, it's really important we have regional marches, because not everything can be London-centric. I organised the Unite for Europe march with Stop Brexit Company a year ago, but then I wanted to take something out of London so that everything didn't appear to be London-centric. So it's great that we're here today to celebrate and to demonstrate how we feel. But having said that, there are 2 other important marches happening this year, and I have to say they are both in London for a very deliberate reason, to actually make a visual impact and make an impact upon the government and upon MPs. The first of those is on June the 23rd, the anniversary of the referendum 2016, being run by Britain for Europe and Tom Barfato. The second one is one that I have launched for the 20th of October in London. I deliberately chose the 20th of October because it is 3 weeks before the MPs supposedly vote on the deal on the 13th of November. I would really ask, if you can, to try and make it down to London for both marches. We need to show this government that we are the true will of the people. Now, I'd like to introduce somebody from just up the road, i.e. East Yorkshire lass. Now, this East Yorkshire lass just happens to run and speak for Best for Britain, Eloise Todd.
Good afternoon, Yorkshire. Have we got Hull in the house? Come on. Have we got East Yorkshire in the house? Hey, Leeds. Nice one. I run Best for Britain. We are about one thing and one thing alone. We want to stop Brexit. Nothing else. We don't want to wait. We don't want to do it after March next year. We want to do it in the next year, because that is our opportunity. Because when we leave the European Union, it's done. If we leave. Absolutely. It's not happening, mate. And I'm going to tell you 3 reasons why it's not happening. First of all, the truth will always out. It's already happening. The government has tried, David bloody Davis, trying to hide the truth about the impact of Brexit. It's not going to happen. MPs have seen it, it's been published, people are starting to understand that the truth will always out. But we need your help with that, because as the jobs start to be planned to go, as your local hospitals get under more pressure, we need those stories in the local papers. We need you to get active. We need you to sign up to any group near you, whether it's Best for Britain, European Movement. Get active because it works. Second reason it's not going to happen. Campaigning really works. Look at what happened in last year's election. Look at it. They were on course for a huge landslide for extreme Brexit, and the people of this country said no. The people of this country said no, and they have kept acting as if they had a mandate for the extreme kind of Brexit that they were peddling. It's just not on. And when we campaigned to get that meaningful vote in Parliament in December, the only thing that made a difference was people like you. People like you contacting your MPs, making your voice heard. It really does make a difference. That vote was won by 4 MPs. Wherever you are, whether you're in a Labour seat, whether you're in a Conservative seat, whether you're in a Lib Dem seat, it doesn't matter. Make sure they hear from you. Make sure they hear from your mates. Make sure you make it tens of people, then hundreds of people. And if we have a couple of thousand people in every constituency in this country campaigning for their MP to do the right thing, believe me, they will listen. Half of their majority is less than that number. So don't ever give up. You have done amazing things in the last year to change the course of this country already. But guess what? We have to do it. There is no choice. We've got 6 months, basically. We've got 6 months to secure a people's vote on the terms of Brexit. And the one reason why I am confident that we will do this is because the people of this country are not daft, especially in Yorkshire. The people of this country know when they've been sold a pup, they know when they're being lied to, and they can also see that a lot of the things that they were promised, they're just not going to happen. And actually, they'll be more likely to happen if we stay and lead in the European Union. We can do this, work together, sign up, we can stop Brexit, we have to do it for our kids, let's do it.
Eloise Todd, Best for Britain. Now, our next speaker, if my phone can start to come around the right way. He's a Liberal Democrat peer, active in the Liberal Democrat Lords group, which is working 20 hours and more a week, presently critically examining the EU withdrawal bill, which the Lords expect to amend substantially. I'd like to welcome Lord Wallace of Saltaire.
Hi. You remember that the Leave campaign said they wanted to take back control and re-establish parliamentary sovereignty. Well, now this is going through Parliament. They're all saying, shut up and go away. It's over, you've got to put up with it. Well, the detail matters, and Parliament is working through the detail. EU withdrawal bill at the moment, 7 to 8 more bills behind it. They're all losing time on it, and we're going to have our say. We defeated the government last week in the Lords on the future of Euratom, wanting Britain to stay in Euratom. The Prime Minister has already said she wants us to stay close to Europol, the Aviation Authority, the Medicines Agency, the European Defence Agency. The list is growing, so she's retreating. But the line from the hard-line Brexiters is, it doesn't matter what she concedes to the Europeans, the most important thing is to get us out by March next year. So we've got, in the next 9 months, to stop them taking us out by March next year. And let me just repeat what Elise has just said. A lot of this now is going to take place in Parliament. The Lords will amend the EU withdrawal bill, will send it back to the Commons, and then we hope that the Commons is going to vote to change what the government has had. And we need all of you to harry your MPs, to write to your local media, to fill the social media, so that the MPs feel the pressure. And tell your MPs that the world isn't the way they said it would be 2 years ago. Liam Fox promised us that there'll be wonderful free trade deals on offer all the way around the world. You know, the Indians so grateful for what Britain did when we ran India that they'd give us everything we want. That wonderful free trade president, President Trump, willing to offer us a deal. What we really needed to do most of all was to leave our enemies behind, who are, of course, France, Germany, and the people in Brussels. Well, we've now discovered that Russia is actually a far bigger threat to British sovereignty than anything we have from anywhere else. And that our friends who share our values and give us support and solidarity are our European neighbours. So just remind your MPs of that and keep them under pressure. We can stop Brexit. A lot of this is going to take place in Parliament. The House of Lords is not elected, is not perfect, there's a lot wrong with it, but we're working on it, and we do like going through the detail and asking them if they can justify the mistakes they're making, and they can't. So get out your mobile phones for social media, write your letters to the press, get on the local radio, go and see your MP as his next surgery, keep up the pressure, and we'll see how far we can go to save this country from a disastrous Brexit. Thank you.
Lord Wallace of Saltaire. Just before I bring on the next speaker, I want to let you into a little secret. Today nearly didn't happen. Leads this to happen. I have to say, the police have been incredible in their support of what we've been trying to do today. They've been behind us 100%. And if it wasn't for them, we wouldn't be here now. Now, our next speaker wrote the European Single Market Programme, which Jeremy Howe then persuaded Margaret Thatcher to adopt, and which is now celebrating its 25th anniversary. For 8 years, he was a local councillor with Theresa May. Please don't hold that against him. But he left the Tories when they left Europe's largest political family, the moderate EPP, European People's Party, in 2009. Joined by several former Tory parliamentarians, he now leads the EPP in the UK. Mr. Dirk Hazel.
Thank you, Peter. Thank you, Peter. Leeds for Europe friends, thank you so much for your Stop Brexit energy. You know, we've been calling ourselves the 48%, but that's really not very ambitious. 2/3 2/3 of the electorate in the referendum did not vote for Brexit. And there were millions more not allowed to vote who could have helped us. So let's start thinking of ourselves as being at least the 2/3. And for another reason, by far the biggest political victory in my life was the 2/3 victory in the 1975 referendum. And there was a very important feature in that referendum. Centre-left and centre-right united for Britain's best future. Our Stop Brexit cause today is bigger than any political party. But Churchill, Macmillan, Hume, Heath, Thatcher, Major, all Tory prime ministers leading Britain towards our best future in Europe. Now, Theresa May, I know her well, knows Brexit is bad and mad.
Disaster!
But her cowardly and selfish exploitation of a dodgy referendum betrays her party's past. And it betrays people who normally vote Tory, who want sustainable security, prosperity and freedom. And of course our best chance of that is in the world's most successful ever peace project, our shared European Union. God, it's lovely to see you and hear you. Many Tory constituencies voted Remain, and we've been doing private polling which suggests that soon most Tory constituencies will be Remain. So let's force the Tory MPs to follow where Owen Smith yesterday so bravely led on principle. There's been a start. 2 Tory MEPs in the last couple of weeks, Julie Girling and Richard Ashworth, left Cameron's hard-right Adams family in Brussels to return to our mainstream moderate centre-right EPP family. And you know, the EPP gave them a standing ovation because Europe wants us. Together, we can stop Brexit. So, because of the party I represent, I appeal particularly to other moderate, decent Conservatives abandoned by their party to join Richard, Julie, and all my other colleagues. Trash Theresa's trouble today. Unite instead for Britain's best future. Leading from Leeds today, we can, we shall, and we must stop Brexit. Thank you so much.
Kirk Hazel, thank you very much. Now, our next speaker has been to Leeds before, I know, but it gives me great pleasure to introduce Professor A.C. Grayling.
Thank you. Thanks very much. It's lovely to be here. I was all prepared to say, hello North, but then I thought that might be a bit too much. But I can remind our Yorkshire friends here, particularly Yorkshire friends, that I'm a tyke. Support Yorkshire Cricket Club. Now, you've heard a lot of important truths today. And truth, as you know, is a valuable commodity in our post-truth Cambridge Analytica world. And therefore, it's worth iterating those truths. One of them is, Brexit is not a done deal. The second is, and it's been implicit in a lot of what has been said so far, but very well worth making it explicit, and that is that the future of the UK is in the EU. Of that we can be 100% certain. And I'm going to tell you why. Since the referendum, the Remainer sentiment in the country has been growing. One thing we've learned is how many millions of us love the EU and want to be part of it. And that is something which is increasing in strength all the time. The Remainer movements around the country, both nationally and locally, are growing in strength and growing in numbers, growing in organisation and in focus. And when you compare how more organised we are, how more determined we are, how here we are, nearly 2 years after the referendum, with larger numbers of people coming out, compare that to the mess that the Brexiters are making of something undeliverable, you can see one reason, one good reason, why we are going to be in the EU in the future, that our future is in the EU. But another reason is demographics, just demographics by themselves. We will stop Brexit, but if by some accident there is some shuffling, fudging, something or other, semi-Brexit that happens at some point in the next 18 months or 2 years, it will be reversed, and it won't take very long to reverse it either. And that fact is a really important fact, because the Brexiters are just wasting time. They're wasting our time, they're wasting our energy, they're doing harm, they're damaging our economy and our society and our country already. It's not that we're waiting for some Brexit to happen and then for businesses to leave and more unemployment to kick in and less money for public services. It's happening already. That's why it's so important to stop Brexit. Do that now. Don't wait for the moment when we reverse Brexit. Now, there is a gentleman standing over here, and you can see him. He's holding up the sign which says 52% equals democracy. Well, I earn my living as an educator, and I love an opportunity to do a little bit of educating. I want to remind that gentleman, because maybe he didn't pick up what Mr. Hazel said a moment ago, which is that the people who voted to leave in the referendum were 37% of that electorate. 37% of that electorate. And moreover, that electorate excluded people who had a really serious material interest in the outcome of the referendum. Our fellow EU citizens from elsewhere make their lives here, do their work here, bring their children up here, pay their taxes here, and they weren't given a voice. That is an outrage. The young people in our country, 16 and 17-year-olds, they're the ones whose whole future is affected by this outcome. They weren't given a voice. And it is absolutely shocking. You look at that word democracy and you ask yourself this question. Why were our own British fellow citizens who live abroad, why weren't they given a voice? So all those three groups of people were denied a voice. And that restricted electorate, of that restricted electorate, 37% of them voted leave. So that lovely piece of cardboard there is a piece of BS. And moreover, let us just suppose that 52% of the entire electorate, including all our fellow EU citizens, 16, 17-year-olds, supposing 52% of them had voted to leave, is that enough for a massive constitutional change? Is 52% is the crudest form of majoritarianism going to drag all the other people in the country along with it without any further debate? And moreover, just remind me, will somebody please just remind me, where was the plan? Where was the roadmap? Where were the policies? Where were the impact assessments? Where were the details about what would happen if we left the EU on the 23rd of June 2016? Absolutely none. Now, let us imagine that we have Mr. Jacob Rees-Mogg among us. I like to call him Re-Smog. Take us back to Victorian smog, you know. And to ask Mr. Jacob Rees-Mogg, you, although actually we know your real motivation, which is you run this big hedge fund, and like a lot of rich people, you don't like taxes. Yeah. You know, funny, if you just earn a sort of ordinary income, you kind of put up with your taxes, don't you? But when you're earning millions and you look at how much of them go to the wretched government, you think to yourself, God, we need to cut taxes. That's that kind of motivation. So that's his real motivation. But he will say what these leaders say. Let us take back sovereignty. Let us take back control of our borders. Let us not be ruled by a capital of a foreign country. That's what they say when they're looking at the EU. But then they hear a Scottish nationalist say, let us take back sovereignty. Let us take back control of our borders. Let us not be run by a foreign capital. And they say, no. You know what that's called? That's called hypocrisy. Absolutely. Because they don't mean it. They don't mean all that rubbish about sovereignty and all the rest. Who the hell, not even the People's Republic of China or the United States of America, has sovereignty in a globalized world where we're all so interconnected. It's just rubbish. It's just nonsense. It's hot air. And I think so many people, like that gentleman there with his big sign saying BS on it there, I would imagine that he has very, very passionate beliefs about the fact that people in Brussels are planning to get him personally, or that, you know, it's all a terrible thing for our country. But we know differently. We know differently. We know what a marvellous thing the EU is. And do you know what? It's so easy to prove. You've been told by all our colleagues in the Remainer movements how important it is that you talk to people. Talk to your friends, families, colleagues, talk to people on the street. Join Remainer groups. Get out there. Put the case. Write to your MPs. Harass your MPs in their constituency offices. Make sure that they don't bat you away by saying, oh, well, you're not a member of my constituency. You just reply to them and say, you vote on laws that affect everybody in the country. You can jolly well listen to what I would like to present to you as a way of an argument. You do all these things. But here is a really powerful thing you can do. Challenge people to spend 4 minutes on YouTube. 4 minutes on YouTube. 2 minutes looking at some footage of Europe in 1945. And 2 minutes looking at some footage of this country in the 1970s. 3-day week, uncollected piles of rubbish on the streets, strikes everywhere. Our Chancellor of the Exchequer going to the IMF begging for a loan. That's where we were, the sick man of Europe, before the EU really began to give us much of what we've got at the moment. And all the things that we have at the moment, like consumer protection, safe food, all the rights that our working people have, maternity leave and the rest, all the advantages that we've accrued from being part of this incredible project, this great, imaginative, idealistic, wonderful project, which is a Europe of cooperation, of progressive values, of protection of our civil liberties, of working together, of being friends. All that is something which is so well worth fighting for and staying in. So, it gives me real confidence. I feel happy. You know, on the morning after the year when I woke up, I thought, oh, unprintable things. But then, very soon afterwards, I thought, you know what? We British people, we British Europeans, are actually quite a sensible, pragmatic lot. That fact by itself will show that those among our fellow citizens in this country who voted Leave will come to their senses, and indeed we see a lot of evidence of that. We will see how much it is in our best interest and in the best interest of our friends in Europe that we be together in Europe. That's why I think the long-term future, the medium-term future, the near future of the UK is in Europe. But it depends on us keeping on fighting for this. It's absolutely wonderful to see these beautiful blue starry flags and the Union Jack and so many people out here saying we want to stay in Europe. Every single one of you is the tip of an iceberg of many, many, many hundreds of thousands, indeed millions of people in our country who want that. And that is why we will win. We'll stay in the EU.
I have to tell you, ladies and gentlemen, that actually Professor Grayling was actually due to be somewhere else today, and I persuaded him to change his whole travel plan in order to come here. I'm so glad I did. I would now like to introduce a student, an aspiring scientist, Magister for Scientists for the EU, Jess Small.
Hi everyone. First, I would like to say thank you all for coming today. And on behalf of Manchester Scientists for EU, I'd like to say thank you for all the hard work that has been put into this campaign so far. And to Leeds for Europe for organising this great event. Today has shown that we aren't going to give up the fight for what we know is best for our country. The scientific community has been in turmoil since the vote to leave the European Union, and because of this we need to continue the fight to keep our access to pioneering medicines and the fight for people who need access to life-saving therapies currently in clinical trials in the EU. We need to keep our place in the growing scientific community across the world, for which the EU provides a great support network. As a young scientist, I am facing a future of potentially not being able to work in the EU and my own country due to a lack of funding. It is vital that we keep connections with the European Union secure to maintain investments in UK science, without which hundreds and thousands of people will be unemployed and without a future. We need to fight for the 75% of young people that voted to remain a part of the EU. Who never wanted Brexit in the first place, and who are now faced with a future we have no interest in. We need to fight for the 16 and 17-year-olds, like my younger sister who helped write this speech, now of voting age, who had no voice in 2016. Now disenfranchised, they have to live with the consequences of something they could not influence. Moving forward, we need to think about the local elections in May, making sure to look out for tactical voting websites and apps for your constituency. Let's keep pressure on Remain politicians to form a strong and effective opposition to Brexit. Sign petitions to force government responses and parliamentary debates. Support your local pro-EU group on street stalls and events. Follow Twitter campaigns like Manchester Scientists for EU and Brits Against Brexit. Engage with Leavers in polite debate. But most importantly, we need to remain strong. We need to remain respectful. We need to remain assertive. Remain. We can do this. We will do this. And we will keep fighting for the scientists, the young people, the people of this country, and the future of this country. Thank you.
I'd like now to introduce Elena Remigi of In Limbo and Jean-Paul Laplana, Nurse of the Year.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Elena Remigi. I started the In Limbo project, and as Peter said, I'm the editor of a not-for-profit book of testimonies called In Limbo. A few days ago, a red bus was travelling around the country saying, "Brexit, is it worth it?" No! No, it certainly isn't for the 3 million EU citizens living in the UK. After more than 600 days in limbo, our future looks very bleak, with the prospect of settled status being implemented. And let me tell you, settled status is not a simple registration. It's an application, and as such can always be turned down. So please do not believe those who tell you that our rights have been sorted, everything is fine. We are not, unless Brexit is stopped. So why is this book so important? On one side, it raises awareness of our plight, but in doing so, it is also changing many hearts and minds. Last week, a young girl sent us a video apologizing for voting Leave. She had never realized the devastating impact this vote could have on the lives of 3 million people. People who felt integrated before the referendum and who all of a sudden have been treated as unwelcome guests, as second-class citizens, as bargaining chips in order to get a better deal. People who've been turned into the other, into bad foreigner, leeching off the system and weighing on structures. Many of us have been told, when are they sending you home? Or worse, when are they deporting you? This is our home.
Yeah, stand by them!
It is also true that xenophobia and racism occur in every country. But hate crimes have spiked up after the referendum, and I have yet to hear a strong condemnation from the government about this. Many EU citizens feel no longer safe due to the hostile environment, a term coined by Theresa May in 2012 to discourage immigration, and are increasingly encountering difficulties in renting, opening bank accounts, obtaining a mortgage, not to mention the 100 deportation letters sent by the Home Office by mistake. The result? Many have fallen into depression, and more have unfortunately decided to leave. So how can we remain silent in the face of all this? We need to speak up. I see people ready to protest against Trump, but what about what is happening right here, right now to EU citizens and to other migrants and to the British in Europe who've equally been betrayed? But I would like to conclude with a word of hope. The great Italian poet Dante, who inspired the title and the cover of the book, said at one point at the start of his work, "In the middle of my life, I found myself in a dark forest." Like him, in times of darkness, we sometimes struggle to see the light at the end of the tunnel. But remember this, Dante's Inferno ends with the verse, "And hence we came forth to re-behold the stars." So this is my wish for all of us, that we may not succumb to apathy, which is our worst enemy, and continue to fight and speak up for what is morally right in order to re-behold the stars. Thank you very much for listening, and I will leave you now to Joanne, our Nurse of the Year and contributor to In Limbo.
Hello, Leeds. My name is Joe, and as you can see by my accent, I'm from Spain. And 17 years ago, I took the advantage of one of the best things that happened to this country, the freedom of movement, and I decided to come and bring and build my future in here and work for the NHS. Like me, is over 60,000 nurses, EU working in the NHS, and up to 140,000 working on the health system. Our lives were absolutely fine until the referendum in 2016. For 17 years, I have lived alongside and worked in the NHS with a lot of people from different countries. I never felt different. When I was growing up, I used to admire Britain, and that's one of the reasons because I came here. My mom and dad used to play the Beatles, and when I was a teenager, I used to follow all the British pop. And even my best television shows were from British. I used to love The Young Ones, and I used to love Fawlty Towers. You know, I'm even from Barcelona, like Manuel. You know, and for that reason, when I finished my nursing career, my nursing degree, and I didn't have a job in Spain, I didn't doubt to come into England. England has given me everything, even has given me two precious children that they are here. And they're the future of this country. And as my colleagues say, a couple of weeks ago, they gave me a very prestigious award as the best nurse of the year. How dare the migrants come into this country, saving life you know, and stealing awards from the British people. How dare they? But as a nurse, I have a duty of care. I have the duty of care to tell you that the Brexit may kill the NHS.
Yeah.
And I cannot stop in my home and watching that happen. That's what I decided to fight. That's what I decided to tell my testimony. And for me, it's very sad when nearly every week some of my EU colleagues are leaving. And are leaving because we don't feel welcome anymore. Not because people like you don't welcome us. It's because the government have used us as a scapegoat to signal out at all the failures that they have done in this country for the last 8 years. And next time that you go to your GP and you cannot have an appointment, next time that you go to A&E and wait 12 hours, next time that you call an ambulance and they take 24 hours to come, please don't blame me, blame austerity.
Yeah.
And I'm going to finish saying that we need to stop this madness, not only for the NHS, but also for my children and your children, because Brexit will make a lot of damage to this country. Please, I will say bollocks to Brexit. Thank you.
Bollocks to Brexit! 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 Bollocks to Brexit!
You know, just before I bring on the next speaker, I want to say something that's going to sound a bit strange. Brexit, the referendum, is probably the best thing that ever happened to me because it changed my life, it's changed me. I have met people through the last 20 months of campaigning that I would never have met in my entire life if it hadn't been for this. And I would not take a moment back or lose one of those people I've met because they have changed my life. Now, I still believe we will stop this, but now my life is enriched because of the people I've met because of this. You know, I stand here today and I'm watching all of you. It is so emotional to actually watch how you respond to everybody. I ask the speakers, please, I want you to give everybody come to your hope. I want you to make them believe they can go away and they can fight this with determination and that it can be stopped. And you have just been incredible this afternoon. I thank you very much indeed for the attention you're giving to every speaker and the passion you're sharing here. I'd like to introduce someone who has become a very close friend to me as well through the last 20 months. Susan Wilson, the chair of Bermain in Spain.
Hello, I'm Sue Wilson, I'm chair of Bermain in Spain, and for the last 21 months I've been fighting to stop Brexit and to protect the rights of British citizens in Spain and across Europe. It has been a constant battle to attract the attention of the British government, especially that of Theresa May and David Davis. They have not listened to us. They have not met with us. They do not care about us. We were told we were #1 priority in the negotiations, yet we are still unprotected, we are still bargaining chips, and we are still living in limbo. Citizens' rights are not done and dusted. There are important issues still outstanding, like our freedom of movement. What has been agreed has not been ring-fenced, so we are unprotected in the event of a no deal. Theresa May still insists that no deal is better than a bad deal. Well, we say no Brexit is better than a bad Brexit. At Remain, protecting citizens' rights, regardless of the outcome of Brexit, has always been our plan B. But the best way to make sure that none of us lose any of our rights and freedoms, not British citizens in the EU, not EU citizens in the UK, not you, is to stop Brexit. We want to remain in the EU. We are determined to fight, and we're as angry today as we were on the 23rd of June 2016. That's why we intend to devote all our time and effort to our Plan A, to stop Brexit. The government are no longer pretending that Brexit is going to be beneficial. They are now saying only that life after Brexit will be different. They are pushing forward on a course of action they know will cause lasting damage because their own impact analysis tell them so.
Yeah.
Never in the history of the British government has our government ever knowingly pursued a course they knew would cause lasting damage to the country and to its people. People are starting to ask, is it worth it?
No! God no!
May would have you believe that Brexit is unstoppable, irreversible, inevitable. Well, we say no to that. We're not listening. Brexit this fight is not over. Brexit is very poorly. It's getting sicker by the minute, and it doesn't have long to live. We can and will stop it. We've come a long way over the last few months, and the mood of the country is changing. No longer do we hear people talking about when Brexit will happen, but if. Yeah. What would have been unthinkable just a short while ago is now possible. Momentum is growing for the public to have the final say. Yeah. Every new development brings new hope and new determination to keep up with this fight. There has never been a better time to make your voices heard. We must pool our energy, our strength and our resources and work together to make sure Brexit never happens. I am more confident today than I have ever been that we can win this fight, and we can do it by working together. It's not going to be easy. It's not going to be painless. And it's not going to be pretty. But nothing else matters for the next 6 months. Yeah. We are the opposition now. No more strong and stable Brexit. No more deep and meaningful Brexit. No more ambitious but practical Brexit. There is only one Brexit that we will accept, and that is a dead and buried Brexit.
Sue Wilson, Remain for Spain. Now, reinvented as Brexit campaigner, day and literally night, he spends in the House of Lords, sitting until 2 or 3 in the morning, considering the EU withdrawal bill. I would like to welcome Lord Adonis.
Okay, it's great to be in Leeds. Now what does Leeds want? What do you want? Do you want to stop Brexit? Yeah! Come on, we can do better than that. What do we want to do? Stop Brexit! What do we want to do? Stop Brexit! Now, let me let you into a secret. Down in Westminster, a place far away of which you know little, there are some people who think it might be good enough just to stay in the single market. Maybe we'll do a deal on a customs union. Maybe we'll be a bit like Switzerland, you know, that huge country which is a great role model for Britain in the 21st century. Or maybe that really huge country which we all look to for inspiration, Norway. Now, Leeds, is that good enough for any of us here today? No! Are we satisfied with just the single market? No! Are we going to put up with a customs union, a great country like ours which should be trading freely with the entire European Union? No! What do we think of Switzerland? We love it, but is it good enough for Britain? No! Norway, we love the Norwegians too. I love their oil. But are we going to be Norway? No! Now, we're English, so we're all very polite to each other. We even tell jokes.
Not all of us.
We're even, come on, let's be very polite, we're even nice to Brexiteers. When I see Nigel Farage in TV studios, I say to him, Nigel, I say, I will swap your German passport for my membership of the House of Lords. He won't deny he's got a German passport. Shame!
Hypocrite!
Why can't we all have European passports as well as British passports either? If a German passport is good enough for Nigel Farage and his family, then membership of the European Union is good enough for all of us too. Let me now take you to the latest addition to the honourable company of fishmongers, Mr. Rees-Mogg. Now, you remember that President Macron, we love President Macron, he very generously is lending us the Bayeux Tapestry to celebrate many centuries of Anglo-French friendship. But he has requested that we send something historic in return. So I have suggested, though this is a serious proposal, in return for the Bayeux Tapestry, we should send the French Jacob Rees-Mogg. As an ancient and historical exhibit of the history of our great nation, we should put him on display in the Louvre. However, I have to tell you, my friends, I have to tell you, President Macron has sent a message back to Her Majesty the Queen saying he is not satisfied with having Jacob Rees-Mogg in return, because he wants us to know the Bayeux Tapestry is much, much more recent than Jacob Rees-Mogg. So we're all polite, but let's be clear, this Brexit nonsense, we're not putting up with it, it's wrong. What are we going to do with Brexit? Down with Brexit. What are we going to do with Brexit? Down with Brexit. Come on, you can do better than that. What are we going to do with Brexit? Down with Brexit. Now, there are 4 reasons why Brexit is going down. The first is Ireland. Have we got any Irish friends here today? Anyone from Ireland here? Anyone with Irish relatives here? Yeah. Well, Ireland, what the treatment of Brexit, by Brexit of Ireland is, friends, shameful. Shameful. Are any of us happy here today with what's happening with Ireland and the Irish border? Do we want a new hard border in Ireland? No. Do we think it's shameful what's happening with the border of Ireland? Yes. Let's be clear what's happening. Centuries of strife and turmoil in Ireland. 3,500, sorry, that's Jacob flying above. This is his first ever trip in an aeroplane. He normally only goes by ship. But he's been so put off by the thought that there's this great revolution taking place in Leeds that he's coming nearby. 3,500 terrorist deaths in Ireland. What did we decide to do? The Good Friday Agreement. Peace in Ireland, power sharing in Ireland, the best relations Britain has ever had with Ireland in many centuries. What does that depend upon? No border. Well, anyone here got the brilliant idea of how you can end the customs union, end the single market, and not have a hard border in Ireland? It just ain't possible. So what does Leeds say about a hard border in Ireland? Do we want one? No. What does that mean to Brexit? No Brexit. That has to be the big message from us to the government about Ireland. And we will show solidarity with Ireland as Ireland is showing solidarity with us through this Brexit process. Secondly, trade. Jobs. Lots of jobs here in Leeds. All of those companies here in Leeds that trade with the continent. Now, What do we all think of Dr. Liam Fox?
Scumbag! Idiot!
Dr.
Moron!
Liam Fox has never in the history of aviation has anyone flown so far for so little as Liam Fox. Do you know where we're going to have trade treaties once we leave the European Union? Apparently Antarctica, apparently the Arctic, maybe some islands in the South Pacific, and of course, Donald Trump. Who here thinks that Donald Trump is going to be the salvation of trade in Europe in the next century? 25% tariffs on steel, just lifted and suspended because of the solidarity of the EU. That is not the future. Who here wants to eat chlorinated chicken for the next 50 years? What do we say to chlorinated chicken? Down with chlorinated chicken. We're not having it at all. Britain at the moment, serious for a moment, we not only have free trade with 75 countries as a result of our membership of the European Union, but it is the European Union that's negotiating with all of the other large countries in the world where we don't have trade treaties at the moment. What do we want? More trade treaties. What do we not want? Lies. And that's what we're getting from the government about trade at the moment. Now, let's come next. Let's come next to the 350 million for the NHS. Has anyone here seen the 350 million for the NHS? Any sign of any money going to the NHS as a result of Brexit? Any hidden £5 notes under those sofas which Boris Johnson has smuggled in off that bus? Friends, it's not 350 million for the NHS that we're going to get from Brexit. It is an exit bill of 39 billion, which the government's already agreed as a result of Brexit. That is the truth. What do we say to the NHS? We love the NHS. Will it benefit from Brexit? No. So what do? We stop Brexit. What are we going to do? Stop Brexit. Let's come now to the young. How many people here seriously think that the future of our young people lies in hiding behind borders, new passports, whatever the country, whichever country they're made in, and no opportunities to work and travel seriously across Europe? Why is it, therefore, that the young are overwhelmingly in favour of staying in the EU and not having Brexit? Why? Because they want to be able to travel freely, to work freely, to move across the continent, to set up companies, and not to be shut up behind borders. So what do we say again? Stop Brexit. Come on, we can do it loud on that. What are we going to do? Stop Brexit. Now, how can all this happen? How can all this happen? Later this year, Theresa May will come back from Brussels with her treaty, the Treaty of Withdrawal from the European Union. This will be the worst treaty negotiated since 1066 for this country. I hope it will be exhibited alongside the Bayer Tapestry, because it will be a similar humiliation for this country. But when that treaty comes back from Brussels, it will go before Parliament. What do we want Parliament to do? To vote it down. What do we want Parliament to do? Vote it down. When Parliament votes it down, and my good friend Jeremy Corbyn, he will vote it down, because you can only vote for or against Theresa May's treaty, and I don't see him voting for it. When he votes it down, what should happen? The people should have their say on Brexit. Who here wants a big say on the final deal on Brexit? Yes, we want a say. Come on, we want a say on Brexit. Let's all repeat it. We want a say on Brexit. When we get that say, in the next referendum next year, there will be at least 2 million new voters who didn't vote 2 years ago. I think we should have votes for 16 and 17-year-olds in the next referendum too. Who's in favour of votes for 16 and 17-year-olds? They're the people whose future is going to be traded by all this. They should have the votes. So we want votes for 16 and 17-year-olds, 4 million new voters. What's going to happen in that referendum? No Brexit. That's what's going to happen in referendum. No Brexit. Now, I just want to, because I'm my good friend Jeremy, it's very important he understands what the message is coming from Leeds. So I want you to encourage, you to send a message to my good friend Jeremy Corbyn as to what Leeds thinks about Brexit. Now, what do you think about Brexit? How about down with Brexit? Down with Brexit. How about Jeremy, vote against Brexit? Jeremy, vote against Brexit. How about Jeremy, give us a say on Brexit? Jeremy, give us a say on Brexit. And what would be the inevitable result of that as the British people see through the lies, see through the jobs that are going to be lost, see through the damage that this is going to do with Ireland? The result will be, yes, you got it there, Leeds, no Brexit. One final thing. We talk all the time about what's going on here in Britain, and rightly so, because we're Brits and we want the best for our country. We are also Europeans. Across Europe at the moment, democracy is under serious threat. Russia has invaded one country next to it, as well as doing the atrocities down in Salisbury. And by the way, solidarity between Leeds and Salisbury. We're all one nation. Putin is not going to get away with murdering on the streets of Salisbury, Leeds, London. Nowhere in this country is that happening. We've just had an election in Italy where anti-European extremist parties have got more than half the votes. The pro-extremist party in Germany has just become the official opposition. The National Front was the runner-up in elections in France last year. The Austrian presidency was nearly won by a neo-Nazi 2 years ago. Who thinks this is the moment for Britain to be leaving Europe and imperiling democracy across our continent? What do we think about Brexit? Down with Brexit. And let's be clear about this, friends. We are all Europeans. We are all Europeans. I've never seen so many European flags as in the last 2 years. We have solidarity with our European friends, European Democrats, who do not want Putin, who do not want a return to fascism in Europe, who want European solidarity, European peace, European trade, and a bright Europe of all of the peoples of Europe working together. Finally, Leeds. We all here in Leeds, we have a dream. Our dream is that Brexit is over, we get over this national nightmare, we rebuild our country, we are one nation, and Leeds, we are all Europeans. So what's our message here from Leeds today with 369 days to go until the 29th of March 2019? Let's all repeat it. Down with Brexit. Down with Brexit. Give the people their say. And our final line, we are all Europeans. We will all stick together as Europeans. We will not give in to the xenophobes. And we, Leeds, we will win. Thank you very much.
I'd like to thank you so much for coming today. Thank you for the response. Thank you for actually supporting all the speakers. One of the conditions we have about being allowed to do this today is we have to clear the streets by 3 p.m. That was a promise I gave to the police. If you can please help in any way to facilitate that. I know the people who've got to deconstruct the stage as quickly as possible. If you can, but we actually got to clear away right now. I know that the stage crew have actually got to deconstruct the stage. So can I please thank you all for coming today. What we want? What we want? Where do we want it? Where